Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Game Plan. This episode is all about the Minnesota Vikings versus the Kansas City Chiefs, a game that is probably going to feature Matt Moore at backup quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is doubtful. Interesting game. I like how these teams match up. If you're new to the program, here's what I do. I run through quickly the injuries. I go through the key statistics in terms of what they've done so far. I go through the key gambler statistics, and I'll explain that in a bit. Then I try to predict the game plan, how these two teams are going to attack each other, give them a path to victory. And then at the end, I will also give my fantasy football projections. Before we get rolling here, if you could give me 2 seconds of your time for 2 clicks, a like and a subscribe. The more subscribers we have, the more videos that are watched, the closer we get to unlocking some privileges to improve our production quality from YouTube. We're really looking forward to that. We need your help. Easy for you, big deal for us. But let's jump in. Let's look at the injury report. So one big one for Minnesota. Adam Thielen, questionable, obviously, with that hamstring. But then you look at the Chiefs; they're really beat up. Even their punters on I shouldn't laugh. Even their punters on the injury report. But Clark, you got Mahomes, obviously, Fuller, Fisher, Breeland. So their cornerbacks are still beat up. Okafor, Devaney Tardif. I mean, there's just a lot of people. The Chiefs have been banged up for a while. It's unfortunate, but it's football. It happens. So Minnesota comes in, I think, is the much more healthy team, and that is a big, big deal, especially when two teams are as talented and one team is playing their backup quarterback. Now, let's look at the key statistics. These rankings are as of this week and in terms of yardage gained. So this is total yardage gained, and I like to put position group next to position group that they're playing. So the Vikings offense is ranked 16th versus the pass offense for the Chiefs, which is 11th. Then you look at the pass defense for the Vikings, it's 8th, and the pass offense for the Chiefs is 2nd. Now, if I look at this, and if Patrick Mahomes were playing, I would say, you know what? Even as good as Patrick Mahomes and this electric Kansas City team is, this is actually a pretty good matchup because Minnesota's defense is really good as well. They kind of even these things out. With Matt Moore playing, I'd say this is a slight advantage in the passing game towards Minnesota. Now, on the run side of the ball, the rushing offense for Minnesota is 3rd versus the 30th ranked defense in terms of stopping the run. That's obviously a heavy advantage for Minnesota. Then you look at the run defense versus the run offense. Again, heavy advantage for Minnesota. This is probably going to be one of the key issues, if not the key issue here. Can Kansas City stop Dalvin Cook? Can Kansas City get anything going with LaShawn McCoy or Damian Williams or whoever in that backfield? They need to. Let's look at the key gambler stats. If you're not familiar, I'll quickly run through. For professional gamblers, they look at a couple of key things. Obviously, there's a lot more, but primarily they want to look at offensive yards per play, 3rd down percentage, 4th down percentage. Basically, how long can that offense stay on the field? How many plays are they going to get? And then how efficient are they? So once a team stays on the field and gets in the red zone, then you look at the red zone touchdown percentage. How's that going? And then, of course, turnover margin. You don't want to be betting on a team that turns the ball over so often. That's why, I personally never bet on Tampa Bay because, you never know when Jameis Winston's going to have one of those really, really bad days that we just saw a couple weeks ago. If you look at the yards per play, Minnesota averaging 6.4 yards per play. Kansas City's defense is averaging 5.5 yards per play given up. Then you look at the defensive yards per play for Minnesota, 5.1 versus Kansas City's 6.6. So if you look at these offenses are very good. Minnesota's defense is about 0.4 of a yard better than Kansas City's defense. If you take these averages, again, if Mahomes was playing and you were to take these averages, you're looking at basically 5.9-ish for Minnesota's offense. You're looking at probably about 5.8 to 9. So it's very close. But again, because Moore's playing and not Mahomes, I give the edge again to Minnesota. 3rd down, 4th down conversion percentage. Minnesota's converting 44%. 4th down percentage, they're converting 57%. You look at the Chiefs, they're converting 46 and 60%. So again, fairly similar here, but defensively, once again, Minnesota is just a little better. And they're a little healthier. Red zone percentage, Minnesota's scoring touchdowns 64% of the time they're in the red zone. A team that can run the ball and impose their will on the offensive line, that's not a surprise to me. Kansas City's offensive red zone touchdown percentage is only 48%, which is interesting. So, again, advantage Minnesota. You look at turnovers, and they're both averaging on the plus side of the turnover margin, so I don't really see an advantage there. So, with all this said, Minnesota basically has the advantage in this game. Not only are they the healthier team, but yards per play and everything, even if Mahomes was playing this week, Minnesota would actually stack up fairly well, I would think. Given the home field advantage, I would think the Chiefs would probably be about 3-point favorites. As it stands with Mahomes out and Moore in, the Chiefs opened up as, I think, 4 to 4.5 point underdogs. So it was Minnesota minus 4 or so. Now, I think, and I predicted that the Vikings would win this game by about 3 to 4 points. I think it's still going to be a close one. Even with Matt Moore in, just remember Andy Reid is a really good offensive coach. Yes, I know Zimmer's a great defensive coach. I get it. And Minnesota's a great offensive team, I think. But Kansas City really has elite talent, and it's hard to keep that quiet. So, regardless who's throwing the ball, I think Minnesota's going to have their hands full. But let's just take a look at the paths to success. I'll just start with Minnesota, and I'll end with Kansas City. Look, Minnesota's controlled both lines of the scrimmage, the offensive line and the defensive line. They're controlling the running game. Just continue to do that. Do what you've been doing the whole season long. Kansas City's struggling against the run. Frankly, I think it'll be easy on the defensive side. They're struggling against the run. I wouldn't say it's going to be easy on the offensive side because Kansas City's defense is playing better as of late. However, you have Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison, who I think is, if it weren't for Dalvin Cook, could be the offensive rookie of the year. But he's just got a really awesome running back in front of him. I love both of these running backs. I really do. So Minnesota's just got to keep doing its thing. Dalvin Cook, I mentioned, projects to have a monster week. Here's the thing. I said this in the game preview as well. If Adam Thielen cannot play, and I'm not anticipating him to play, but we'll see. If he cannot go, I think what this means, I don't think this is an uptick in Kyle Rudolph. I don't think Irv Smith. I don't think these guys are going to get more targets. I think Dalvin Cook will get more targets. They'll slide him into what I would consider maybe similar to what the LA Chargers are doing with Eckler now that Melvin Gordon's back. Dalvin Cook will catch more passes, and then basically to keep him fresh, they'll use Mattison more as a pure runner. So I think it'll be similar to what we saw last week against Washington, but Cook is set to have a big game. Now, if Thielen can play, I love this matchup for both Thielen and Diggs. Both of these guys, I think, can get behind the Kansas City defense. I think both of these cornerbacks will end up playing for Kansas City, but we'll see. In either way, I think both of these receivers, they're so talented, can get behind the coverage there. So a lot of opportunities for Minnesota. Now, Kansas City, I'm a little bit more concerned for Kansas City, not only because of the backup quarterback, but because Minnesota has been so dominant in both sides of the run game, the offense and the defense. They got to get something going in the run game. Enough is enough. Whether it's Damian Williams, whether they're signing a guy, they're not rumored to do this, but sign a guy like Jay Ajayi or something like that, somebody who can catch and run. Sign somebody, do something, get something going in the running game because they have not been able to run with consistency, and this passing team is way too good to not have avenues in the running game to get going there. So that's a little bit of a disappointment. Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, I do think that they'll have some opportunities, but it's going to be tough sledding. For Kansas City, I think they need to win the battle with their third and fourth receiver, Demarcus Robinson and McCole Hardman. I think those guys need to produce this week because, Tyreek Hill, as good as he is, and he's too good to be, I think, bottled up for an entire game. I think he will have an opportunity or two deep. But, look, Kansas City needs this talent, needs this speed to shine, and they need to win their matchups across the board. This is going to be a full team game. You can't expect Tyreek Hill to pull in 3 touchdowns, even though I have him at a nice projection. You really have to win some of these other matchups. And again, assuming the run is going to be tough to come by, Travis Kelce, you need to show up. He's been playing better, I think, as of the last couple of games. They're going to need him this week. And I think this is the kind of game that he thrives on. I think Minnesota is going to try to be a little bit chippy with him, and I think he thrives off of that. I think he plays a little bit better when teams are physical with him. Almost like he gets the chip on his shoulder. I think that'll be good for him. So let's move it on to my fantasy football projections, my RoccoBot projections. These are computer projections from the fantasy football analytic program that I wrote. Kirk Cousins is projected at 19.47. I think that's around 10th or 12th. That's kind of a fringe start, so I think he's all right. Dalvin Cook, obviously, I think is going to have a great game. I have him at a 29. That's the number one running back projection this week for my computer projections. Mattison, I would give him a little bit of a bonus if Thielen doesn't play. If Thielen plays, I think you can leave that projection there. If he doesn't play, I would tick him up to maybe a 9 or a 10. Thielen I have as a 12. Stefon Diggs is a 12. Those are both starts. I think 1 to 2 touchdowns between the two of them. So I think both of them can come down with a touchdown grab. And I mentioned I don't love Rudolph. I don't love Smith. And even Minnesota's defense this week, I don't love this defense. Now for Kansas City, Matt Moore I think will have a nice game. I do foresee him to throw an interception or two against this tough Minnesota defense, but I do think he'll have a nice game. Damian Williams, don't like him. LaShawn McCoy, don't like him. Minnesota's defense is too good, and Kansas City hasn't shown a sustained ability to run the ball yet this season. I don't think this is the week that's going to happen. Tyreek Hill at a 25, that's probably a 2-touchdown game. I think it's probably going to be a little bit less than that personally. Sammy Watkins, I think that's a nice yardage reception game for him. But I think McCole Hardman, and I don't have Demarcus Robinson on here, and Travis Kelce, I think they could even get 2 touchdowns between the three of them. So be on the lookout for that. So there you go. That takes me through an episode. Kansas City fans, Minnesota fans, let me know what you think I'm missing here. I do think that Minnesota wins this game. I think it's going to be closer than probably Minnesota fans think. I think Chiefs fans... you're probably just waiting for Patrick Mahomes to come back, but Matt Moore is a solid quarterback. Andy Reid's a great coach, and there's a lot of offensive personnel. I see this as about a 27-24 type game for Minnesota. But, let me know your predictions. Comment below if you think there's a fantasy football standout or a fantasy football sleeper from this game I'm not talking about or think I missed. Please comment below. I'd love to have the conversation. And, catch us on another episode soon. Thanks, everyone.